The galaxy was burning. World after world had fallen to the enemy. The stars that once shone with life now flickered with the fire of destruction. The Galactic Council sat in their towering chamber, voices trembling as they argued. They had called upon every species for soldiers, but none were enough. The ancient enemy was too strong, too ruthless, too endless. A council member slammed his hand on the glowing table. "We need more soldiers, more armies, or we will all die," he cried. Another whispered in fear, "There's one species we have not yet asked." Silence filled the chamber. Every delegate turned toward the great screen where Earth glowed in the distance. Humans, the word was heavy. Some laughed nervously, others shook their heads. "They are too young," one alien scoffed. "Their world has only touched the stars a short time ago. They are not ready for galactic war," another muttered. But desperation was stronger than doubt. The council voted, and the message was sent. Humanity was summoned to give soldiers to the galaxy. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The people were silent when they heard what the council wanted. They did not cheer, they did not smile. Instead, they prepared. Nations that once fought each other stood together for the first time. Factories ran day and night, producing black armor and strange weapons. Ships were built in secret, huge vessels that looked more like floating fortresses than transports. Whispers spread among the stars. Humanity was coming. Weeks later, the skies of the council's capital darkened. Massive human ships descended slowly, blocking the light of their twin suns. Crowds of alien citizens gathered, staring in awe and fear. The ships did not shine with banners of honor like other armies. They were silent, matte black, and cold. When the first ramp lowered, everyone leaned forward to see the soldiers. But what came out did not look like soldiers. They stepped down in perfect silence. Tall figures covered in heavy black armor, helmets with no face visible. Each carried weapons no one in the galaxy had ever seen. Their steps echoed like thunder across the landing bay. The council delegates shivered. Something in their movements was wrong. Too precise, too cold. One alien general whispered to another, "These are not soldiers, they are executioners." The human commander stopped at the foot of the ramp. He did not salute, he did not bow. He only stood still, hands behind his back. Finally, he spoke, his voice deep and steady. "You asked for soldiers," he said, "but what you need are something more." His words echoed through the chamber and through the watching crowd. None could answer. For the first time, the mighty council felt the cold touch of fear from their own allies. That night, whispers moved through every street of the council's capital. The humans had arrived, but they were not like anyone expected. They did not eat, they did not sleep, they did not speak. They only stood together in the darkness, silent as statues. The other soldiers from alien worlds looked at them with unease. Some laughed nervously, others prayed quietly, because deep in their hearts they all knew the galaxy had not called soldiers. It had summoned something far more dangerous. The ancient enemy was preparing its next strike. The battle would come soon, and the galaxy would see the truth. They had asked for soldiers, but humanity had given them executioners. The council's capital had never been so tense. The city of towers and lights was built to shine as a symbol of unity. But ever since the human ships had arrived, shadows seemed longer. Even the twin suns felt dimmer, as if they too feared what had landed. The docking bays were filled with soldiers from 100 species. They were trained, armed, and prepared to fight the ancient enemy. Yet, when they saw the humans, their confidence cracked. The black-armored figures did not mingle, did not speak, did not laugh. They stood in perfect silence, motionless, as if carved from iron. Even their breathing was hidden, their helmets smooth and faceless. To the others, they seemed less like allies and more like predators watching prey. General RHA Core of the Valari race was the first to approach. He was tall, scaled, and decorated with medals from countless battles. He stepped toward the human commander with pride in his stride. "Welcome, humans," he said, his voice echoing through the bay. "We hope your soldiers will fight with honor alongside ours." The human commander slowly turned his head, the black visor showing no eyes. His reply was simple, cold, and sharp. "We do not fight with honor, General," he said. "We fight to end." A silence spread like a wave through the entire bay. Every soldier, every delegate froze at those words. That night, whispers filled the barracks. Some alien soldiers mocked the humans, calling them walking coffins. Others whispered prayers to their gods, begging to never fight near them. But no matter the words, all felt the same weight inside their chest. Fear. The council members gathered again, debating behind closed doors. One delegate slammed his claws on the table. "They are too dangerous," he hissed. "We asked for soldiers, not butchers." Another shook his head, his eyes trembling. "But look at the enemy. Do you not see? No one else has stopped them. Maybe these humans can." The room was filled with arguments, voices rising higher and higher. But deep down, all of them shared the same thought. What had they unleashed? Meanwhile, the humans prepared in silence. Their ships unloaded strange weapons, heavy crates locked with codes no one else could break. Drones hovered around their camps, scanning every inch with mechanical precision. The aliens watched from a distance, unsettled. Other armies trained loudly, shouting, sparring, showing strength. But the humans never shouted, never sparred. They moved in drills like shadows, precise and cold. Not a single wasted step, not a single wasted breath. One evening, a group of young alien recruits dared to approach the human camp. They laughed nervously, trying to break the silence. "Why do you hide your faces, humans? Are you ashamed?" one of them mocked. The black-armored figures did not reply. Only the human commander turned, his visor reflecting the recruits' faces. When he finally spoke, his voice was a whisper, yet it carried like thunder. "Faces are for those who need to be remembered," he said. The recruits froze, their laughter died, and they ran without another word. On the eve of battle, the council held a ceremony. Each army was called forward, banners raised, music echoing through the grand hall. The hall was filled with color, shining armors, bright flags, roaring chants. Then came the humans. No banners, no songs, no chants. Only black figures marching in silence, boots striking in unison like the toll of a great bell. The sound shook the hall more than any roar. For the first time in history, even the proudest generals bowed their heads. Not out of respect, but out of fear. The enemy fleet was gathering on the outer rim. Reports came that an attack was near. The council wanted to test the humans in real war. Ships were assigned, armies were mixed. But no matter the orders, the humans never looked at others. They only looked forward, silent, waiting, like wolves before the hunt. And as the stars beyond the council's world began to darken with the shadow of invasion, the galaxy realized the truth once more. They had not summoned soldiers. They had awakened executioners. The stars were filled with fire. The enemy fleet had arrived, their ships blotting out the sky above the rim world of Threxer. It was a planet already scarred by war, its surface torn with craters, its cities turned into graveyards. Now, the alien enemy came again to finish what they had started. The Galactic Council deployed every army they had. Bright warships filled the void, banners of 100 species shining across the dark. Their soldiers stood in formation on the ground, their chants echoing, trying to drive away fear. But when the humans stepped forward, the noise died. There was no chant, no cheer, no sound, only the heavy steps of black-armored executioners marching into place. The battle began with fire raining from the skies. Enemy ships poured plasma onto the surface, turning sand into glass. Alien soldiers screamed orders, running to cover, returning fire desperately. But the humans did not run. They advanced, step by step, straight through the burning storm. Plasma bolts slammed into their armor. The ground exploded around them. Still, they did not break formation. Their weapons lifted as one, and the world shook with their answer. The sound of their fire was not like other weapons. It was a roar, deep and endless, like thunder that never stopped. Where their shots landed, the enemy vanished in red mist. Alien generals watching from afar felt their scales crawl. This was not the way of soldiers. This was slaughter. On the field, a squad of Valari fighters tried to hold a ridge. They were pinned down, enemy fire cutting them apart. They cried for support. Then the humans arrived. 10 black-armored figures climbed the ridge without slowing, without hesitation. One raised his weapon, and a wall of fire poured out. The enemy fell in seconds, hundreds gone. The Valari soldiers stared, their claws shaking. One whispered, "They move like death itself." The enemy responded with their most brutal strike. Great war beasts dropped from the sky, massive creatures with armor like stone and jaws filled with fire. Even the bravest soldiers of the galaxy feared them. But the humans did not stop. They surrounded the beasts silently, moving as one. Explosives lit the night, tearing through armored flesh. When the smoke cleared, the beasts lay broken, and the humans stood untouched. Above, the enemy fleet pressed harder, but human ships joined the fight, black fortresses cutting through enemy lines. Their weapons were not elegant, not graceful. They were brutal, designed for one purpose: destruction. Whole enemy cruisers split apart in fire. One council commander gasped, "They do not fight battles, they erase them." Hours passed, but to the humans it seemed only minutes. They never tired, never slowed, never faltered. Every strike was calculated, every step precise. Where others saw chaos, they moved with deadly order. And soon the enemy began to break. Creatures that had once conquered whole empires now fled at the sight of black-armored shapes advancing. Their commanders shouted in panic, "Do not let them near. Do not let the humans near." But it was too late. The humans hunted them across the battlefield, showing no mercy. No retreat was allowed. No survivor was spared. When the last enemy ship pulled back into the void, silence fell. The battlefield was littered with bodies, smoke rising into the red sky. The council soldiers cheered weakly, voices trembling. But the humans did not cheer. They only stood, silent, weapons cooling in their hands, their black visors reflecting fire and death. From the safety of the command chamber, council leaders watched in unease. Yes, the humans had won the battle. Yes, they had saved Threxer. But the way they fought had left even allies shaken. One elder whispered, "We did not ask for soldiers. We asked for monsters." Another replied, his voice cold, "No, we asked for survival, and monsters are what survival demands." And as the human ships returned to orbit, carrying silent executioners back into the shadows, the galaxy began to understand. The war had changed forever, because humanity was not here to fight battles. They were here to end them. See, the smoke of Threxer still clung to the stars. Every corner of the Galactic Council's capital buzzed with news of the humans' victory. Banners of celebration waved. Alien news screens shouted headlines of hope. For the first time in centuries, the ancient enemy had been forced to retreat. The council should have been rejoicing, but beneath the cheers there was unease, a silence that no song could hide. The alien soldiers who had fought alongside the humans could not forget what they saw. Some spoke with awe, praising their strength, but most spoke with trembling voices, remembering how the black-armored figures walked through fire without slowing. They remembered how the enemy screamed in terror, and how the humans gave no mercy. Not one enemy soldier had been taken prisoner. Not one had been spared. General Arachikor stood in the council chamber, his scales dull with unease. "They do not fight like us," he growled. "They do not fight for honor. They do not fight for glory. They fight only to kill, and they will not stop until there is nothing left." Around the chamber, delegates shifted nervously. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked away. The truth was too heavy to face. Ambassador Reelan, small and frail with silver eyes, spoke softly. "But we needed them," she said. "Without the humans, Threxer would be dust." Her voice shook, but she forced the words. "We cannot deny that they saved us." "Yes," HFY admitted. "They saved us." His voice dropped lower, but at what cost? Outside the council, rumors spread faster than light. Civilians whispered that the humans had no faces. Some claimed they were machines, empty shells filled with death. Others said they were demons wearing armor, summoned from a dark world. Merchants told stories of black ships that drank the stars. Children cried at the sight of a human silhouette. Even allies avoided their camps. They were feared more than the enemy itself. In the training grounds, alien soldiers trained with their usual noise, swords clashing, voices shouting drills. But when humans arrived to practice, silence fell. Their drills were silent, perfect, and merciless. One alien recruit whispered, "They're not learning how to fight. They already know. They're only remembering." Tension grew between armies. On one night, a group of alien soldiers argued near a human camp. "Better to fight the enemy alone than to fight beside these monsters," one shouted. Another hissed, "Do you want to survive? Then stay quiet," because they hear everything. As if in answer, a single human turned his visor toward them. He did not move, he did not speak. But the aliens fell silent, their courage drained away. In the council's war chamber, leaders debated long into the night. Some demanded that humans be kept apart, controlled, even disarmed. Others argued it was suicide to limit the only force capable of destroying the enemy. The chamber echoed with fear, because no one could deny the truth. The humans could not be commanded. They obeyed orders only when they chose to. They bowed to no flag, no council, no throne. They were there for their own reasons, reasons no one could understand. But what disturbed the council most was this. The humans did not celebrate their victory. While every other army drank, sang, and shouted their survival, the humans only cleaned their weapons, repaired their armor, and waited, as if the Battle of Threxer had meant nothing, as if it was only the beginning. General HFY met with the human commander in a private chamber. He slammed his claws on the table, his voice filled with frustration. "Your people terrify us. They terrify everyone. Do you not see it?" The human's visor tilted slightly, reflecting the general's angry face. His reply was calm, colder than space. "You fear us because we do not fight like you," he said. "But you called us because no one else could win." HFY leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "What happens when the war is over? Human, what will you do then?" The commander did not answer. He simply stood, turned, and walked away, leaving the general's question to echo in the empty room. And so the galaxy trembled. They had wanted soldiers, but they had gained executioners. Yes, the enemy was terrified, but now so were the allies. The ancient enemy had never known fear. For centuries they had burned across the stars, unstoppable, merciless, eternal. They crushed empires, silenced species, and erased whole worlds. But now, something new haunted them. Whispers of humans spread, even into their dark fleets. Black armored executioners who did not stop, who did not retreat, who did not spare. For the first time in their long history, the enemy hesitated. On the frozen moon of Koroth, the enemy launched another invasion. Their monstrous legions poured from the sky, claws tearing into stone and steel. Alien armies braced themselves, knowing what was coming. And when the humans arrived, the battlefield froze. The executioners marched through the snow without a sound. Their weapons gleamed with fire, their visors reflecting nothing but death. The enemy howled, a sound that once made whole armies tremble. But the humans did not flinch. They advanced as if the howls were nothing but wind. The first clash was brutal. The enemy's beasts charged, teeth glowing, claws sparking against the frozen ground. Other soldiers fired in panic, trying to slow the monsters. But the humans did not scatter. They raised their weapons as one. A storm of fire lit the snow. The beasts fell in heaps of broken flesh, their blood steaming against the ice. The enemy commanders shouted in disbelief. They do not fight, they erase. In orbit, the enemy fleet clashed with human ships. The Council's fleets held back, giving the newcomer space. Black fortresses of Earth moved like predators through the void. Every strike was final. Every shot tore ships apart. The enemy, who had never retreated, who had never begged, now pulled away. Whole squadrons abandoned formation, fleeing into the dark. Their commanders screamed at them to return, but terror had already taken root. On the ground, the retreat turned to chaos. Enemy soldiers dropped their weapons and ran. They left behind banners, supplies, even their wounded. One was caught by a human, lifted by the throat. Through the translator, the creature cried, "Stop! We surrender." But the human did not pause. The executioner's grip tightened, and silence followed. Those who saw it whispered later, "Humans do not understand surrender." Word spread like fire across the galaxy. The unstoppable enemy had broken. For the first time, they had fled a battlefield. And it was not because of fleets, not because of the Council. It was because of the humans. The executioners had hunted them until they chose flight over fight. The galaxy rejoiced on the surface, but in their hearts, fear grew deeper. Council leaders gathered in secret. One delegate said with trembling voice, "The enemy fears them more than they fear us." Another whispered, "And so do we." The debate turned bitter. Some said the humans must be embraced as saviors. Others warned they must be contained before they became a greater threat than the war itself. But no one had an answer, because deep down, all knew the truth. If the humans decided to turn their weapons on the Council, nothing could stop them. On the edge of space, enemy warlords screamed in rage. They tore apart their own soldiers for failing. But fear could not be erased. Every time they closed their eyes, they saw black armor, faceless visors, and silent steps. For the first time, the ancient enemy whispered a word they had never spoken. "Monsters!" And still, the humans said nothing. They did not celebrate, they did not explain. They only prepared for the next battle. Their silence was heavier than any war cry. And the galaxy realized with dread. The war was no longer between them and the enemy. It was now a war where humans marched. And wherever they marched, something broke. First the enemy, and perhaps soon the galaxy itself. The war chamber of the Galactic Council glowed with the light of 100 stars. Maps and battle reports floated above the great table, showing victory after victory. Everywhere the humans went, the enemy collapsed. Everywhere the black-armored executioners marched, the impossible became possible. Worlds that had been lost for centuries were reclaimed in weeks. The galaxy should have been celebrating. But the chamber was filled not with joy, but with fear. The delegates spoke in hushed tones, voices trembling. "They are too strong," one said, his eyes wide. "If they turn on us, we will fall in days." Another slammed her fist against the table. "Do not be blind. Without them, we are already dead. The enemy would have destroyed us all by now." The chamber erupted in arguments, fear clashing against desperation. Some called for trust, others demanded control. A few even whispered of betrayal. "We must stop them before it is too late." General HFY stood in the center, his scales dark with unease. "They do not answer to us," he growled. "They do not answer to anyone. They fight on their own terms, not ours." Ambassador Reelin, her silver eyes tired, replied softly, "And yet they fight for us, whether we understand or not. They stand against the enemy when no one else can." But even she could not hide the tremor in her voice. Rumors spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Entire species whispered in secret. "What happens when the war ends?" they asked. "Will the humans stop, or will they turn their weapons on us?" No one knew. The humans themselves gave no answer. They did not speak of peace. They did not speak of after. They only prepared, silent, waiting. In the great cities of the Council, Statues were raised for fallen heroes. Songs were sung for victories. But humans were never part of these honors. They did not ask for them. They did not want them. And yet, their absence made others uneasy. Because heroes celebrated, but executioners did not. Late one night, in a hidden chamber, several delegates met in secret. They whispered of desperate plans. One said, "We must find a way to weaken them, bind them, perhaps even destroy them." Another hissed in fear, "Destroy them? How? No weapon we own can touch them. No army can face them. Even the enemy flees at their sight." But the first only shook his head. "If we do nothing, then one day the galaxy will belong not to us, but to them." Elsewhere, soldiers of other species watched the humans with growing unease. They saw them sharpening blades that had never dulled, repairing armor that had never cracked. They saw them stare into the dark, as if listening to voices no one else could hear. When asked why they fought, the humans never answered. They only said, "Because it must end." The council sent envoys to speak with the human commander. One asked, "What do you want? What reward do you seek for your victories?" The commander's visor turned, the reflection of the envoy trembling in its black glass. "We want nothing," came the reply. "We were not called for rewards. We were called for execution." The envoy returned pale, unable to speak further. Fear deepened. Some species began preparing secret defenses against humanity, building weapons, planning escapes. Others begged the council to tighten the alliance. "Make them one of us," they cried. "Bind them with treaties before they leave us behind." But treaties required trust, and trust was impossible when the executioners never removed their masks. General Arichikor returned to his quarters, his claws heavy against the steel table. He looked at the reports, victories, rescues, reclaimed systems. And yet his heart was filled not with triumph, but with dread. He muttered to himself, "We asked for soldiers, but we brought wolves into the flock." The council was trapped in its own dilemma. They could not survive without the humans, but they were terrified of surviving with them. And so, the galaxy stood on a blade's edge, caught between the enemy they had always feared, and the allies they now feared even more. The galaxy held its breath. The enemy was broken, their fleets shattered, their armies scattered into the void. For the first time in living memory, the stars were quiet. No more burning skies, no more screaming worlds. And yet, the silence was not peace. It was fear. The council gathered in its great chamber, every delegate present. The war was over, but the question remained. What now? The black-armored humans stood at the far end of the hall, silent as always. They did not kneel, they did not bow. Their faceless visors reflected the nervous faces of 100 species. Ambassador Reelin, voice shaking, stepped forward. "Human commander," she said, "you have done what none of us believed possible. You have ended the war." Her words hung in the air like fragile glass. But the humans did not answer. The silence stretched until the chamber felt colder than space. Finally, the human commander moved. His boots echoed like thunder across the marble floor. He stopped at the center, and his voice carried without effort. "You asked for soldiers," he said, his tone calm but heavy. "But we are not soldiers." The chamber trembled with unease. Delegates shifted, some whispering, some clutching their robes tighter. "We are executioners," the commander continued. "We do not fight for honor. We do not fight for glory. We fight to end." His words were sharp, final, undeniable. The council felt them cut through the air like blades. Some recoiled, others stared in awe. None could escape the truth. General Arichikor rose, his scales glistening with sweat. He growled, "If you are not soldiers, then what are you to us?" The commander's visor turned toward him. For a long moment, there was no answer. Then, with chilling certainty, the human replied, "We are the line between survival and extinction. We are what you summoned when you asked for victory at any cost." The hall fell into silence again. Every delegate understood. They had not hired an army. They had unleashed a force that could not be chained. The enemy had feared them, and now the galaxy did too. The commander lifted his hand, signaling to his people. Without a word, the executioners turned and began to march from the chamber. Their steps echoed like a drumbeat of doom. No one dared to stop them. No one dared to speak. They left as they had come, silent, faceless, unstoppable. As the last human vanished into the shadows, whispers spread through the chamber. One delegate whispered, "Are they saviors?" Another asked, "Or are they the next executioners of us all?" But none dared speak loudly, because all of them knew the humans had heard. They always heard. In the days that followed, the humans departed world after world. They did not leave monuments. They did not leave statues. They left only silence and the memory of death that followed them. The council worlds celebrated their survival, but the joy was hollow. Every cheer was followed by the same question. Would the humans return? And if they did, what would they come for? On the edge of the galaxy, far beyond council space, human ships drifted into the dark, their black hulls swallowing the stars. Inside, the executioners stood, waiting, their weapons cleaned, their armor ready. They did not rest, because rest was not in their nature. One soldier asked quietly, "Where do we go now?" The commander's reply was steady, "Where we are needed." And so, the galaxy was left with its revelation. The humans were not soldiers. They were not allies bound by honor or law. They were executioners, born from fire, shaped by survival, called only when death itself had to be answered. And as the stars burned quietly above, one truth remained. The galaxy had asked for soldiers, but humanity had given them something far more terrifying, something that could never be undone.